Hey, welcome everybody for another round of the Ready Room. We've got my friend uh, Wombat here with us. I actually did an interview with Wombat that I'll be putting up maybe Friday or Monday. Um, Wombat and I basically went through flight school together and through most of an illustrious Navy career together. So Wombat, hey, welcome to the Ready Room, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so before we get started, I know. Hey, Mover, how are you?
I'm here.
Good to see
Nice to be here. Thanks for the intro.
Get back to handling the media.
Sorry, I'll hide myself. Back to carry on.
Wombat, hey man, I know you do some writing, like Mover does, dude. Where can people find your work?
First of all, I don't write like Mover. He's far ahead of what I'm doing. But I have set up a website, trmatson.com, and a Facebook page too, which I'm pretty sure you'll link. And that's pretty much where I'm putting all my content right now. Just some basic articles, some things that have happened to me, a couple scares that people always like, scary aviation stories. So
Yep.
if they can read my version of what not to do, that might help them out.
Cool. And then I know me and excuse me, Mover and I do we do as much as we can with Folds of Honor, and you like to support Wake for Warriors. I know you're an avid boater, and it meshes well. But can you explain really quick what that is?
Yeah, so Wake for Warriors was a foundation set up by a friend of mine that basically is just an outlet for veterans, whether they're physically wounded, mentally wounded, just need some time out to get out on the water and recharge the batteries, and we'll take darn near anybody out there, teach them how to wake surf, wakeboard. I've seen some pretty amazing things. The founder has let me watch him teach blind guys with one leg how to surf behind a boat, which is pretty amazing. But it's a really good outlet for the veterans and their families, just to be able to kind of forget about what they're dealing with on a day-to-day and just enjoy it. So it's been a pretty good organization. Been working with it about 2 years now, and hope to continue in the future.
That's awesome, dude. Charity work is always good. Well, hey, Mover and I, we're just kind of like regular pilots. I know that throughout your illustrious Navy career, you became an LSO. So I know there's we get a lot of questions about like the whole carrier aspect of it. And yes, I was a carrier aviator, but I just put the thing on the thing and never pass up a good wire, grab the ace, and go get my my cheeseburger before bed, right? But you were a trained LSO, which is landing signal officer. So I thought maybe we would dive into that a little bit. And the other thing that you did I thought was really interesting was you were basically a UPT, or in the Navy we called it flight school instructor in a T-45. And as a person who received your product as a RAG IP, I was always really impressed with the students we got. They were much better than I remember myself being coming from the T-45. So I know Mover's never actually done it. So Mover, what questions do you have for us boat naval aviators?
I was supposed to have questions. Hold on. I'm producing over here. I didn't know it was going to be a test. Okay, look, now we're back to all three views. You guys aren't seeing this, but so hi. What questions do I have? Is it hard, so to speak? God, that's terrible.
It isn't if you do it the right way. It is not if you do it donkey's way.
So, all right. So when you do the I do have a question, Gawky. Thank you. I have a question now. When you take a student to the T-45, you're not in the jet with them, right?
Oh God, no! You couldn't find an instructor pilot in this planet that would do that. So we spend about 3 to 4 weeks teaching them at the field. It's darn near 100% solo time for them, and we're at the LSO shack. Yeah, it's a good deal. They like it because they get to fly solo, and we like it because we don't have to fly with them. So it works out pretty well. And then we take them out to the ship. We get our the LSOs usually get a few landings just to get recurrent. And then we're out there all day. T-45 is day only, so it's all day every day until you can get them all.
Yeah, you don't want to do that at night.
You know, and we're just out there, and there's also lead safes that work with us. Some of which are LSOs, some are not, and they'll actually lead a division of 3 students out to the ship and basically bring them into the break and set them up just like we do at the field, and then let them go on their way, and we have them from there. And sometimes it works out great. Most of the time it does. We're not going to take people to the boat that aren't ready to go for the most part, but everybody, as Gonky can attest to, once you see the monster for the first time, all bets are off. So I remember vividly my first landing to this day, and all the things they taught us went right out the window, and all I hoped for was that they waved me off as quick as possible so I could have more time to figure out what I was doing. And they did. So it worked out really well. It was really rewarding just to kind of be part of that aspect of their training, because it typically was, if not the last part of their training before their wings, it was pretty close to the last part. So
yeah. Well, dude, let me ask why do we need LSOs?
So it really does kind of go back to before they even had a lens or a ball that we're used to flying. The LSOs would actually stand out there. They're called paddles because they would stand out there with paddles that the pilots could see. No joke. And the old planes, you know, they had such a nose up attitude. That's why we fly the landing pattern we fly in the Navy, the approach turn, because they couldn't see the ship. So they had to do a constant descending turn to be able to see the ship the whole time. And so it's pretty interesting. And that's obviously morphed now to the lens that we have and the systems that we have, and to be able to do it all weather, day, night. But the LSO, you know, until you've stood up there and really gotten an eye for it, I didn't believe it as a student. I probably didn't believe it going through the RAG either, but the LSO really can see things that are happening to your aircraft before you could even feel them. And it takes a honed eye, and I was really humbled, honestly, to work with the men and women that did that job, because I remember being a nugget in my first squadron and going up there thinking I knew everything about carrier aviation, and I didn't know anything. And it took years to kind of hone that craft. So it's good. There's things that you're going to miss, even on your best day. I've had grown men hug me, thanking me that I saved their lives. And I look at it as, I don't even know how it happened, just kind of dumb luck. So it's really that symbiotic relationship between the pilot and the LSO. There's a lot of trust. Gonky, I know you remember it from all the way back T-45s, where they said never to question the LSO. That goes away a little bit in the fleet. I've had more than one pilot question my calls. But there is definitely a trust there that we're going to get you back on the boat safely, but I need you to do what I'm asking you to do when I ask you to do it. And it's a pretty cool relationship.
Well, dude, I know it's a lot different. You know, the Air Force, obviously you and I started off in Air Force training, and then we went back to the Navy, and the Air Force guys always had a real definite, you're going to graduate with your wings on this date. But in the T-45 program, dude, like when you're in IP there, how much of that program was basically CQ, carrier qual?
It was probably about, depending, if you were going through the E-2C pipeline, it's about the last 3 to 4 weeks. And then if you were going through the strike or the fighter pipeline, it's still going to take about the same time, about 3 or 4 weeks. But some people did it at different times. Yeah. I think, if I remember correctly, you did it pretty close to the end of your total training, which is kind of what they wanted. They wanted it to be kind of the graduation. Hey, you qualified, go home, don't do anything stupid. Here's your wings, go off to the RAG. Because they knew that it was such an accomplishment that people tend to be a little bit cocky afterwards, as they should be, in my opinion. Being able to accomplish that is quite a feat. So I think they've learned over time that if you give a young student pilot the ability to land on the ship and then send them back to do BFM or some strike, you're going to see some interesting cockiness is probably the best way to describe it.
I don't know about you, man, but I was worried about what if I don't qual? I'll probably come home. They'll send me home without any wings, off to like refueling officer school.
Yeah, no, that was basically my everyday going through flight school. Was I just assumed that somebody would pull me aside in the passageway and tell me that they don't know how I got this far and it's time for me to stop coming.
How'd you get
here? Didn't happen, so I guess I slipped through the cracks, which is nice. Yeah, definitely every day. That's what I was expecting.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I mean, I'm so fortunate that I actually made it and stuff. But like, in the back of my mind, man, I just thought how horrible it would be to go through 2 years of flight school, studying like crazy, like on the cusp of my dream, and I can't land on this stupid boat, and they wash me out, and I go home and I don't know, work at the local hardware store. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I mean,
could be happening soon anyway. I mean,
that's right.
I think Mover and I are both surprised that you're not there right now. Anyway.
Right.
I thought you'd be a good greeter at some.
It is. It definitely is.
Look at that smile. I mean, that's a greeter smile. Sorry. Go back to your seriousness, your interview.
No, I'm serious. Like, I mean, because I saw it happen. I saw it happen to guys, and it's like, man, I mean, I just can't imagine being, 2 years. Like I said,
man, I remember the day we were roommates in Kingsville, staying in the same apartment, and I remember you were upstairs. I walked outside to let the dog out, and saw some Marine guy who was a student a class ahead of us or a class ahead of you, and because we all lived in the same apartment complex, and I said, good morning. I was like, hey, how's the program going? He's like, I just got washed out. I'm going home. And I was like, okay. And you were walking downstairs to go fly. And you're like, what happened? And I told you. You're like, every day, man, every day. So it really was. And I think that's probably why back then the winging parties were a little bit out of hand. And there was just pent-up stress for, years.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. I never thought I ever would have gotten out of dance. To be perfectly honest with you, I think
Unit America
probably thought the same thing. So,
yeah, I know. I mean, I know. What's your favorite quote, Mover? No war's ever been won by landing on a ship. Is that how does that go? And I always tell you,
I don't know. Hey, speaking of, is it a boat or a ship?
A boat.
To you, it's a ship. To us, it's a boat.
That's just mean-spirited. That is.
You got to be able to. If you've landed on it, it's a boat. It's a demeaning little game that we play with the surface warfare officers. They would never call something of that size a boat. Pilots, because we're inherently, I guess we'll go back to cocky. We diminish everything that's not ourselves, so it's just a boat to us.
But Todd, it looks this big when you look out there. You try to land.
It's true.
Little boat, man.
At 6 miles behind it at night, it's a boat. It takes quite a while to become a ship. So, no, but it's just a little play, part of the ribbing that is the Navy, I guess.
Well, find out if you happen to watch our interview. Wombat flew E-2s first, then he flew F-18s. So, dude, what was harder around the boat, the E-2 or the Hornet? Don't hurt my feelings.
I'm not going to hurt your feelings. I don't think there's a person watching this channel that would expect me to say the Hornet. I mean, the Hornet was designed by its nature to be easy to fly, just as a pilot to go fly. For you and I to go fly, it's designed to be that simple because of how complex the mission is. The mission for a pilot in the E-2, if you take away the actual flying of the plane, amounts to a whole lot of BSing with your buddy and eating peanut butter and jelly stale sandwiches from the ship and waiting for time to go back to land on the ship. So it was not a pilot's aircraft at all. It was very uncomfortable. The visibility was horrible. The asymmetric thrust was unbelievable. I mean, it just was. And that was just because the mission was all in the back of that plane. So that's where all of the technology was. That's where everything was designed. Much like the Hornet, you were an operator of that aircraft. And I would imagine the Viper is the same way, Mover, where, every one of your fingers was doing something at some time in that plane. And so at its core, it had to be easy to fly. I mean, that's just the way it's designed. If it wasn't, none of us would have ever been able to fly a Hornet and employ a Hornet as lethal as it can be. So, but yeah, around the E-2's, she was a little bit of a pig.
All right, Wombat, you're better.
No, I don't think anybody also has any doubt in that. That's not what I'm. No, I really do. I respect anybody who flies off of an aircraft carrier and comes back without an ejection seat. That's a pretty bold thing to do, and for the E-2 and C-2 pilots and aircrew out there.
Oh yeah, if you get bored, there's a great shot of an E-2 breaking the cable. It goes off the end of like 90 knots, and somehow those guys save it like ridiculous, man.
Great pilots, great pilots.
Hey, one more quick question, then I guess we'll turn it over and start answering some of these questions guys are putting in. But so, dude, it was pretty easy for me to teach guys in the Hornet, relatively speaking, because they already had wings. They knew how to fly. I just kind of had to like guide them, show them, what to do in the Hornet. So I know now in your current job, you teach winged aviators how to fly. Is it easier, do you think, teaching guys who are winged vice, like, no kidding, guys in flight school who haven't earned their wings yet? Like, what do you find is easier, and what do you think is more rewarding?
It really depends. There's challenges in both. With a new student, one of the advantages I had is I always taught advanced students, so I didn't have to deal with primary students that had zero time like I did when I showed up.
Nice.
I give a lot of credit to those instructors because I don't know how they dealt with me advanced, and I can only imagine that that's a struggle. So when I was in Kingsville and then also Meridian, I had the luxury of having people that at least had some flight time under their belt.
Yeah.
So the pro to that is they were usually, I'd say 99% of the time, extremely eager. And they really wanted to learn, and they really wanted to prepare. And I think that was good. But they didn't have the skill set. They had all the drive, but they didn't have the skill set yet. Well, I could teach anybody how to fly if they're eager.
Yeah.
Now when I teach in my other job, they're all winged, like you said. They're kind of at the other end of their career. And I would say 99% are still eager, but it's the ones that aren't, that are just a little bit burnt out or have been doing it a while, or there's other things that are affecting their lives. You remember when you and I and Mover, I'd imagine you're probably the same going through flight school. That was your life. That's all you had. It didn't matter if you were married, single, had a dog, had kittens. Flying was it. I have a funny story about that, Mover, that I'll tell you some other time. But the flying was it. That's all we cared about, was getting our wings.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, life changes. So I think there's challenges in both. They're both really rewarding. Instructing across the spectrum, when you have that student that it clicks, that somehow your ability to communicate is what causes it to click, that's about the most rewarding thing. And I think you've had that many times too, and understand that. That's when you drive home kind of just feeling a little bit prouder because somehow you got through to that person. And most of the time it's just dumb luck, but it still makes you feel good. So.
Well, cool, man. Well, guys, I think maybe we'll open up for some questions we got rolling here. Mover, you still with us? You're producing.
I'm on the producer side of this thing. I'm just in the background.
Fantastic
Flipping
job.
cameras. Camera one, go.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Hey, you're Wombat. Your first E-2 squadron was at 117.
No questions from whoever the 117 Jopa is.
Admin Queen 117 Jopa has a few questions. I would love for you to just hit us with those questions, like straight from your ready room, and we'll see what Wombat says. Look, he's sweating.
All right, let's do it.
See here, Tim Robinson. You were fantastic in the Spectres. Yes, I know. Thanks, Mover. Dude. Let's see.
And you got written out in the Finney flight.
Nah, dude. Why did you write me out? I thought I was going to have like a whole series about.
No, I had to write you out because we started flying together.
Oh, well.
Hey, let's talk about Wombat. What's Wombat's book about?
Ooh.
Can you tell us?
Wait a minute. Wombat, you're writing a book?
Yeah. So today was kind of a big day. I hit, as Mover has told me, 80,000 words is a good target for a first book ish.
Yeah.
Today I ticked over 40,000, which was my goal.
By many definitions, that constitutes a novel. So, congratulations.
As long as the definition of a novel is not something exciting or something people want to read, but we'll see.
Do it.
So it's going to be fiction because anybody who knows me knows that I don't really want my whole story to get out there because I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations has not expired on all that stuff yet. But it's a fiction novel. That's all it is. It's easy to write fiction, and you know, all of us have known people in our times and squadrons, and there's a lot of great stories to tell. So instead of just talking about me, which nobody really cares about after a few minutes, make a fictional character and put some of those stories on there. And I was a little bit inspired, honestly, by kind of what, and this is probably aging me, but kind of like what Stephen Kuntz did with Flight of the Intruder and how he wrote that. So,
Mover, have you seen that movie, by the way?
No, but did you know he recommended my books?
Well, that's good. That's pretty awesome.
That was the coolest thing. I saw that. I was like,
yeah, awesome. That would be that. I would say when people ask me about the book, I say it's a little bit of Flight of the Intruder, a little bit of Richard Marcinko, Rogue Warrior wrapped into one. So basically, a lot of flying, a bunch of stuff made up, and a lot of 4-letter words. That's pretty much the book.
That sounds like a standard Navy SEAL autobiography.
I just hope this one doesn't get me put in jail, but I don't think it will. So
it'll get you a contributor spot on one of the 3-letter networks.
That's fine. They probably pay, I'm assuming. So, but yeah, so it's getting there. And then the articles, they just kind of hit me when they hit me. You know, much like Mover did a memorial one. I wrote one recently on Gazer, a buddy of mine from the A-2 squadron that unfortunately didn't make it. And you can read that on my website too. But just kind of a mix of things. That's all.
All right, Wombat, back to the comments here.
I'm kind of hoping we would just forget the real questions. Those are making me nervous.
No, these are decent. So we've got some Tomcat love on here. Did you ever wave for any Tomcats? I know that was at the end of our
Tomcats.
No. The closest I got to Tomcats were my midshipman crews. A couple of the others let me go up to the platform, and I got to watch them.
I'm sorry, you broke up. Did you say you got to watch a Class A?
No.
Gawky, your dial-up is terrible, dude. I heard him fine.
Really,
Tomcat, and I thought, watch
Tomcats.
Yeah, what I really want from this live interview is that enough people watch your channel that you can buy more than dial-up internet. That would be
maybe afford something better than 56K.
Yeah. No, when I was a midshipman in ROTC, I did a midshipman cruise, and a couple of the LSOs brought me up when they were doing carrier ops, and I got to watch some of the Tomcats land, and that's a big plane, you know. In a day where everything's Hornets, Super Hornets, and the E-2, the
Tomcats.
So, apparently, Mover likes them a lot too. So, but I never physically got to wave a Tomcat. We were done in our area.
All right, dude. I got a question from the admin queen, which I assume is some board Jo from VAW 117. Hey, is it you guys are the wall bangers, right?
Yeah.
And the working area off the coast was Beaver Control, wasn't it? So can you check in Beaver Banger?
Every time we could. That was what we did, yeah.
SoCal flying. Anyways, his question is, can T-45 students use autopilot?
They could. They're allowed to use autopilot all they want. Unfortunately, it's not installed in the aircraft. So, so that's why it was so great to be an instructor, because we would joke that our autopilot was the student sitting in the front seat. But yeah, no autopilot, no auto throttles, T-45.
All right. Looks like old Calvin Cooper here says, just send them against F-15Cs. They'll lose that cockiness real fast about naval aviators. Well,
I've got a video on my hard drive that would agree to that, but that's a whole nother.
Mover, what do you think of the F-15C? Be honest.
Dude, I'm just the producer back here. I don't know why. All I'm here for is to facilitate and then hopefully get some subscribers to come over to my channel. That's why I'm wearing my shirt.
Good looking jet, dude. I mean, it fits right in the pipper. It's like perfect. I mean,
like a tennis court.
It's like, yeah, I mean,
was it 45
catches
feet?
all the bullets.
45 feet across. You can write your name in cursive.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. Let's see.
Oh God, there's a gift from Zoom. Hold on, running out of time. Love it.
Oh man, we're 27 minutes into this.
I don't know. I got a thing from Zoom. If this ends, it's not my fault.
It better not end, dude. You need to upgrade your Zoom.
I don't have this many friends on my channel.
Barry McBride says, I've seen a video of a swaying ship. Could not imagine trying to line that up. Yeah, so I guess we didn't talk about it, but like Wombat mentioned the Fresnel lens and stuff to help us get aboard. So Wombat, when the ship gets like when it gets too violent, you can't use the lens anymore, right?
No. So there's gyro limits to it, and it can keep up pretty well, but at some point we exceed that, and we would see that when we were waving. You could just tell by the pilot, actually. And so if it wasn't keeping up, we would rig the Movalus, which was the manually operated visual landing aid system. And that literally, if you want to go in the world of technology, was an LSO with a stick in his hand attached to a machine.
Yeah.
And I could literally put you wherever I wanted to put you. And it was quite an art form to be able to do that, because now you're trying to watch the movement of the ship, and sometimes I would want you to be higher than you normally would be. And that's really where the trust came in between the pilot and the LSO is you had to just do what you saw and know that if it didn't work out, we would get rid of you and wave you off. And there was no harm in that. And it's been done plenty of times to all of us. But it really was quite an art form to do that. But that was basically our fail-safe backup system.
If you didn't have they call the Movalus, or if you didn't have the Movalus, you guys would just try to talk us down, right?
Yeah. And even sometimes on Movalus, we would be also talking to them. So, one of the things that was interesting in the E-2 being a multi-crew is I was taught early on, turn down the ICS or the internal comms and turn up the radio. Because when I was on the ball, the only person I cared about was the LSO. I didn't care about any of my buddies riding along in the party bus. And, and there were more than one time where I had usually somebody in the back would say something at the wrong time.
Right.
Trying to land on the ship. But it really was, you listened to their voice, and voice inflection was huge. And that was something you learned as an LSO too. They called them sugar calls. There was a way that you could, oh yeah.
I got lots of sugar, dude.
I know we've never deployed together, but I've heard stories about the amount of sugar calls that needed to get gunky on the ship sometimes. But I remember you telling me once, when I transitioned to the Hornet, you said it's really simple. All you have to do is either be really good at landing on the ship or really good at tanking. And I asked you how hard it was to land on the ship, and you said, I don't know, but I'm awesome at tanking. So I don't know what that means, but it was an interesting the relationship between an LSO once they start talking to the pilot was even closer. It was almost, in a way, I could almost fly your plane for you by the way I spoke to you, which was pretty cool.
Almost.
I ignored all of the rules and just put the thing on the thing and did whatever you wanted. And then
old Timmy Veith, who used to be in the Diamonds of the E-Foot, he'll never forget the night me and my roommate, we'll just call him Shady, we're CQing for the first time Diamonds, because the LSOs had to. Well, I was during the day. The deck was pitching. What's the hook to ramp clearance?
I have to look all that stuff up again, but it can get. We have warnings on the platform of when it goes below zero.
Which means you'll hit the back of the ship, right?
The hook would, yeah. And I remember as a new pilot in the E-2, I never knew what that horn was in the back when the LSOs would key the microphone.
Yeah,
I hear this horn go off, and then I started doing the LSO gig, and I realized that it was when your hook to ramp was essentially zero, and that kind of changed my mentality flying behind the ship, because you can't unhear that sound. So. No,
well, I was brand new, and I ended up breaking both mains on a Hornet that night. And my buddy went at night, and he long bolted and almost went in the water. So we were both brand new. They they pretty much said no new guys flying. So that was my fleet debut for carrier landings. It didn't go so.
I'm well aware. There's and I'm sure it's dated now, but there's a video on YouTube called "Pitching Deck Carrier."
Yeah.
That is a PBS documentary, if that even exists anymore.
Yep.
And that was my introduction to carrier operations. I met my squadron out there during that time.
Well, hey, Stevie's got a question. Do E-2s also join the same stack pattern with Hornets and Growlers?
Yeah, typically, at least in the air wings I was in, the E-2 was always at the top, 5,000-ish feet, depending on how we did things. And we'd usually be the last ones to come down just because of the size of the plane. Sometimes there'd be a tanker, a Rhino. We had Rhinos that would come down with us, which was cool because sometimes we'd fly form off them or vice versa to bring them into the break. But yeah, typically we're at the top, just kind of the last big kid to come down after everybody else is done.
Because of the fuel, you guys carried plenty of gas.
It really wasn't the gas thing. It was a space thing. So that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions. I mean, we took off with less gas than you guys did, actually. We just used a lot less. And we had no way to get more. So there's been a couple flights in my logbook that are extremely long because of the fact that they used to call it the Hummer dance. I don't know if it's your air wing, but it was when the Hawkeye was coming down and we'd have an approach time and a time to be over the ship. And they'd constantly, because other planes were boltering, they'd spin us out of the pattern and we'd have to rework our fuel numbers. So yeah, it's a whole different world. No ejection seats, no in-flight refueling. It's different.
That sounds terrible.
It's a working person's airplane. Let's put it that way.
So Megalodon 64, he asked me would I ever love to fly with the Blues. Not really. It's not really something I ever want to do. Wombat, did you ever have dreams of flying with the Blue Angels?
No.
Mover, did you ever want to fly with the Thunderbirds? As a Thunderbird?
Hey, why can't I be a Blue Angel?
Well,
back. Yeah.
You're back. Did you ever want to be a Thunderbird or a Blue Angel? I'm sorry.
Maybe.
No? No desire?
They party, man. They've got some good stories.
I know. I guess that's just not that lifestyle. And I don't know, man.
30 guys in the group immediately said no, and the one single guy's like,
so it's about as close to being a real rock star as I'll ever be.
That's if you did it back in the day. I would imagine it's probably more of a liability now. But
yeah, as we found out last year. Anyways, next question. Old Calvin Cooper, how many times did you guys lose against F-15Cs? Mover, have you ever lost against an Eagle?
No. No, in fact, fighting the Eagle was easier in the Hornet than it was in the Viper.
Yeah. Dude, the F-15 is like King Kong BBR, but if you can survive and get to the merge. Anyways, let's see here. Which aircraft's harder to fly, T-45 or T-38? I think I'm the only one who can answer that. The 38.
Either one.
What?
When you weren't that good at either one.
I was marginal at both, and the 38, that thing. I'm like literally as of today. I'm like, if you do like a 6-week look back, I'm 50-50 on an emergency or not if I go flying. So that's the T-38 for you. Let's see. There's a lot of Tomcat stuff on here.
Tomcats. Dude, Oral is going to be on the channel in the coming weeks. I'm doing an interview with him, and there will be a lot of Tomcats.
Yeah, Joe C says wings swept. I guess that's one way to go through life. Let's see. I stood next to a Tomcat and a Falcon. Hey, Mover, did you ever fly with a Tomcat?
Retired by the time I joined the military.
Was it? When did you start flying the F-16?
2008.
2008. Wow. Wombat, did you ever have to bring a guy into the barricade?
No, thank God. We came close. There was at least once where we had, I remember vividly, a Super Hornet that if he didn't get aboard on the pass that he was on, they were going to have to rig the barricade. And that was pretty nerve wracking. Like there is a part of every aviator, it's like be kind of cool to see, but when push comes to shove and you know the pilot, you just hope they can get there and land. So we didn't have to. It's obviously super rare, and it's a whole different way to wave that aircraft as well. So it's
how tall is the barricade? You remember?
I don't. It looks massive when they put it up when you're standing on the flight deck, but I can only imagine when you're coming into land, it probably looks equally small. So. Oh
yeah, of course, dude. I just saw a video of like in 1987, this whale tried to take the barricade, and they're screaming cut at him because he's a little high, man. He just comes over the top of it, like it swipes the gear off, and obviously all those guys died. I mean.
Yeah, it was a whole different way, and we had briefed it that night on the platform because you really do the wave off window is so far out on it because you need to, you have to commit. I mean, you don't want that, and that's one of the things as LSOs we did a lot is, we constantly watch the plat cam videos that people can see on YouTube and all that. Really studied those mishaps in hopes they'd never do it again, but I mean. You hope to never be part of that. And luckily we got him down and he trapped and we didn't have to do it, but they were ready. They had guys lined up on the foul line ready to rig that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the closest we ever came to barricading guys are the midair we had, but.
Oh, I'm very well aware of that midair.
It wasn't me.
I know. I thought it was you. I don't even know if Mover knows that story. I thought it was Gonky because he was on another carrier at the time, and I think you were the only pilot I really knew on that carrier.
I was supposed to be flying that night, but I was sick.
Yeah, sick.
I had studying to do.
They launched an alert Hawkeye, and I jumped in it because I thought it was you in that plane for whatever I was gonna do. But the Hawkeye and the wall banger Hawkeye actually did 99% of coordination for those two guys, and they both survived. So it's pretty.
Yeah. No, dude. So this dude named Porkins took my spot. I was the duty guy on duty. The phone rings and the air ops is like, "Hey, I forget the side numbers, 305 and 310. Something about a bleed air or a midair." I'm like, which one is it? Is it a bleed air or midair? That's
a pretty big difference.
Quite a disparity. All right. Connor wants to know, Wombat, what was the best part about being a naval aviator? You still are.
I'd say the camaraderie, the friends you make. Being able to fly a multi-crew plane was really cool. Obviously, if I had my way, I probably would have taken jets out of primary, but I wasn't ready for it looking back at it, to be perfectly honest with you. So flying multi-crew was really fun. Had a lot of good times. Friends that I'm still really close to this day were my roommates on that deployment. But it was also cool to rage around and fly single seat Hornets for a tour and get to do all that. So, but ultimately I think it comes down, as we get a little older, as much as it hurts me to say that, and you go on to bigger, better things if they're that, the friendships that you made and the stories and doing stuff like this, that really is the stuff you're going to remember. And hopefully, you could see it behind you there. It is interesting. I guess it's your channel, but it's interesting that you're the only one with an "I love me" wall behind you. But it's that stuff, that you pass on, hopefully, to your kids or to people that you can mentor. And I think that's what's the coolest part. I've forgotten all the bad stuff, and trust me, there's bad stuff, as you guys know. But you forget all that, and you just remember the good times, and I think that's probably what was most rewarding.
Yeah, man. I think the good times were all the time, but they weren't.
They were not.
Mover, when you switched to the Navy before you switched back to the Air Force, did they make you go do the Hilo dunker?
Yeah.
So you had
that's why I went back to the Air Force. I don't ever want to have to do that again.
So
4 years. That's all you. That's how long you get, and that's how long I was in the Navy.
Yeah, because you got to redo it. So Michael Beck asked, what's the story and history of the water tank at UTP and throwing each other in? So all three of us.
He's not talking about the dunker. He's talking about when you solo, you get thrown into the bucket of water.
Yeah.
That's not the Hilo dunker. That's an Air Force. Right? Does the Navy do that?
That is correct. I misread it, but all three of us have been in the UPT tank as well. It was for Wombat and I, it was outside in between the two buildings at Vance, right?
Yeah, Scummy pond water.
Dude, I don't know was that even water, Wombat, in there?
No, they had to throw me in twice because the ice didn't break on the first one.
That's right. That's right. I remember that.
The bounce off.
You fell right off and fell out the other side, and they picked me up again and threw me in, and it broke. Yeah. So the Navy has a much kinder, gentler tie cutting ceremony, which in March at Enid, Oklahoma, I would have opted for, but
cut my tie.
Yeah. But it was fun. It was cool to do. I think I'm still cold from that and survival school. So,
Mover, what's the Air Force history behind throwing another dude in water after they solo?
As close as we'll ever get to the Navy, I guess.
to dunking yourself?
Yeah, that's our Hilo dunker. Here you go. Because, dude, our swim fizz, when they said, hey, you got to go to swim fizz, I'm like, oh, dude, it's awesome. Dude, you've done Air Force water survival, right?
Yeah, dude.
Dude, it's like floating around in a raft. It's a little bit of jet skiing, and it's parasailing. You don't ever get under the water. You're always above the water.
I mean,
it's an awesome deal. We go to Key West or awesome.
Well, you don't want to mess your hair before your tea time, right? So it's important.
Exactly. There's no reason to drown yourself. I mean, why do you need a Hilo dunker? I don't fly Hilos.
Well, if you happen to find yourself in a Hilo,
it's just not my day. Dude, they have swimmers right next to you that pick you up. They're like, hey, I saved you. Save me again. I mean, what's one more time?
Dude. I know. They've actually had, Wombat, you back me up, they've had guys go down, the Hilo goes up, picks them up, and the Hilo crashes.
I have a friend who went out and got pegged to be the survival guy in an operation. So it was just training, and they flew him out to a place.
I heard that story. Yeah.
And then he was coming back to the ship, and the Hilo crashed.
Yeah. I had to explain when I was in Air Force water survival party, whatever it was. Like, while we're all sitting there, drinking our Pedialyte so we don't dehydrate.
Yes.
Like, they were like, "So why do you have to do the Hilo dunker if you're a jet pilot?" And I had to explain to them.
It still makes no sense.
If your jet crashes and your rescue Hilo crashes, so you have a chance of surviving. Maybe the boat will sink. You finally get back on it.
Well, we fly over water too, and we'd have the same risk. I mean,
listen, man, we just had to play by the rules. Let's see. There's a bunch of questions here.
You need to go to live chat mode, dude. You're in like top chat. You're missing all the cool kids.
No, dude, I'm in live chat. Wombat, have you ever had a night where you just had to keep waving a guy off? Like I guess the question was, how many times have you had to wave off a guy? The most.
All of them.
Did you ever have like just one? I've heard stories of guys getting waved off until like daylight at night.
I remember waving a Nugget, single seat Hornet Nugget. I waved him off 12 times.
In what airplane?
Yeah. And I mean, you've been there. Like, that's a long. He flew. This was not CQ. He flew. I think a double cycle, 3-hour flight, tanked. It was all training. It was off SoCal, rough seas, and we just couldn't get him. And it was his night in the barrel. I mean, we all know if you've landed on a ship at night, the term night in a barrel, and that's what it was. And we got him, and it just took time, and he was safe. It just wasn't matching up, and at some point it became a fatigue issue. There was definitely some questions about sending him back to the beach because North Island wasn't that far away. I don't make those decisions, and the people that did, said, nope, we're going to keep it going. So we kept them going and launched 3 tankers to fuel them.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, finally got them aboard, and then got all the tankers aboard too. So,
Steve asks, does the E-2 fly the Case 1 carrier brake?
It does. It does. Just the same carrier. So,
what speeds could you guys come in at?
Legally or physically?
What would it do, man? If you were looking for the upgrade?
Most of the time flying the E-2, I stopped looking at the speed gauge above 350 knots and the radar altimeter below 200 feet. So it didn't have a very good instrument scan. In fact, when we started training on it, the RAG instructors told us that the FAA laughed at the instrument setup in the E-2 because of how bad it was. So you just kind of flew it by the seat of your pants a lot. But there was ways to trade altitude for airspeed and come in pretty quick. And it was impressive. I remember I went to an air show, I forget where, and I decided I was going to come in for the fastest break I've ever done. And the plane turned so tight, I was still over the runway on downwind, and I didn't know how to fix that. I was like, okay. And so we extended and we landed, and I was walking around the air show like we all do, just basically hoping girls would talk to me, and they didn't. And, but one old guy came up to me and he's like, do you fly that? He saw my patch. He's like, do you fly that big, tiny AWACS? That's what they'd always call it, tiny AWACS. And I was like, yes, sir. And he's like, man, that break you came in for was pretty impressive. And I was like, trust me, it impressed the heck out of me too, because I didn't expect it to do that. So it was a really maneuverable plane. Once you understood how to fly it, it took about 500 hours, realistically, to get that plane. Unlike the Hornet, which took like 4 hours, and you saw what you were doing. So, did
you knock out the NFOs in the back? That's what we really want to know.
No, they were all that air show. The air show was pretty funny. It was actually 2 pilots in the back and 1 NFO, because everybody just wanted to take the party bus to go to the air show. So, but yeah, it was it could get some speeds, and they're tanking them now. So that's the newest thing. One of my buddies was the first.
Wait, the E-2 can tank?
The D model is going to have tanking capabilities, so it's got to be able to fly as fast as I think Super Hornets, stuff like that. So,
so old Harvey Waldbanger here. Wombat, is it true that you single-handedly saved the boat by intercepting an Iranian spy plane?
That is true.
Are you serious?
That is true. Unfortunately. So clearly that is somebody that knows me and knows the story.
You never told me. I've intercepted the Iranians in a Hornet, but I've never, you did it in the E-2?
Yeah. So it sounds really cool. And I mean, he was right there. It was probably about 3 meters away. But so we were out on a mission in the Persian Gulf, and they had an Iranian plane that was going to come over fly the carrier. And they couldn't scramble any of the Super Hornets or Hornets to get there in time. So myself and my co-pilot jokingly said, well, we're not that far from the carrier. We could at least intercept it. I mean, we've got the world's best radar behind us, right? So the ship approved it, which is kind of like calling your bluff, because I didn't really mean I was going to do it. I mean, we don't have air-to-air radar. We don't have TAC-INT. I mean, I have nothing, So
wait, the E-2?
Yeah, well, for the pilots.
Oh.
So the NFOs actually talked us on, and we intercepted. And I'll let your viewers Google what a Y-12 is, but it's pretty fierce looking. But it kind of resembles like a Cessna Caravan. And it was, I think, just trying to fly out to Farsi Island or something. And we intercepted it. I've got great photos of it. And then a Super Hornet intercepted it next to us, but it was awesome because he couldn't fly as slow as we were going. So he was in full burner max alpha trying to stay with us, but yeah, we technically intercepted it and kept him from flying solo over the carrier.
Wait, you have pictures of this?
Oh yeah.
Why don't I'm speechless that you wouldn't share that with me. That's
I think the part that really stings is the paint job on the Y-12 actually has a rainbow-like tail, which really hurts when you join up on something like that and you think it's going to be something tactical and scary. I think we did scare him though because of the size of the radar. He was probably afraid he was never going to have kids. Bigger than we were, but yeah, we did. We intercepted him twice.
That's awesome. No, I intercepted a Y-12 too, but I mean, they're easy in a Hornet. But let's see. Castro wants to know, Wombat, in your opinion, is the era of dogfighting over?
No, I don't think so.
Did the big radar in the E-2 always work?
No. In fact, when I got to the end of my tour, my third deployment in E2, I actually kind of hoped it didn't work because then I would just go do flybys of all the ships in our battle group. So you'd see a lot of E2 guys walk with a bunch of stuff and a big helmet bag, and I would just walk with an e-board, and it had all the TACAM frequencies of our ships and their call signs. And I was hoping that the radar would break, and then I would just go do flybys all day. So, but you know, they have better radar now and newer planes and all that. But yeah, I don't think the era of dogfighting's over by any stretch. And yeah, the radar did not work all the time, which is probably why I have a son, actually, because if it worked all the time, maybe I'd have a daughter.
I think it's you that told me that, right? Every time, like if you looked at the beam width on the, like it actually like just passes through your head in the cockpit, and you can hear the radio.
ICS every time it would sweep you, which is a very, very good feeling for the 1,000 hours that I flew that plane. So.
Yeah. Well, I had a little boy too, and I know I've spent most of my life being locked up by somebody, I'm sure. But now, Wombat, which you only flew the Legacy, right?
Yeah, Charlie, Baby Hornet.
Now you were 106. You went to Ragon 106, right?
106, and then out west for my fleet squadron. Yeah.
You have a particular model of Hornet that was your favorite within the Legacy?
I think a big motor slicked out Charlie was probably my favorite. For the whole 37 minutes you could fly that thing before
in burner, it
was awesome. But no, I mean they were all great. You know, definitely differences between the A3D. You know, not just the single seat, dual seat, but just the upgrades they had. But it was just fun to fly, man. It was a sports car. You strapped it on. You know, it was just a blast. And but yeah, if I had my choice any given day to go fly for 37 minutes, give me a big motor Charlie with no pylons and nothing on it, and I'll go practice my anti-G strain maneuver.
So Wombat, as a air to surface or air to ground guy at times, how would you say your bombing scores were on average in the Hornet?
I honestly don't really remember anything.
You never slung a couple. Mr. Harvey Wallbanger is asking. That's why I'm just curious.
I don't recall. I mean, I was never the greatest, and I was never the worst. So nothing pings out to me that I remember, at least.
Okay. All right.
I didn't miss the range or anything like that, like some of the people we know. So
here we got a quick question for the mover, because we can't answer it. Hey man, air to surface, what did you like? What did you like being in more, the F-16 or the Hornet?
F-16.
For air to ground? Why?
I think in general the pilot vehicle interface, the finger fire drill, is much better in the Viper. The F-16, you could just, everything's on the throttle. I think it's a much easier jet to. And we did CCIP bombing most. Go drop unguided versus auto. I know it has the CCIP mode in the Viper. I think is better than what I liked it. I liked them both. I mean, it's my favorite mission, no matter which jet I was flying. But as far as what was comfortable, I think the F-16, because you could flip between CCIP, CCRP, just tapping the stick, get through any of the modes, and we ran around. It was weird in the Navy, rolling in, and that's when you would go hot. At least that's what they told me. Versus the Air Force, we ran around with a hot, fence in, master arm hot, and then the way you would do it was you'd run around. Well, you'd run around at CCRP, so nothing would come off the airplane, and then you'd click over to CCIP as you roll in. You drop and then come off. I prefer the F-16 for how hands-on throttle and stick works, and I think in general, everything, air to air, air to ground, the interface is much better in the F-16.
Was it more stable? Like if you were doing like any kind of strafing, was it as stable? Which jet was more stable as a gun platform?
Well, you know, the F-16 didn't have the cant, the gun. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I strafed a lot more in the F-16 than I did the F-18, but I was always more comfortable finding a wire because you just had, you know, you had the rivets on the side and you had the big bubble canopy. So you know, you put a fist out and you're like, okay, that's about right. You'd roll in versus the Hornet where you're kind of, it's a little bit higher. You got the canopy rails and stuff. You know, you don't necessarily have the visibility that
we did. Right, Wombat, 2 bolts back and a fist off the Lex, right?
Yeah.
That's it every time. And close your eyes and pull the trigger. That was it.
Right? When I went to the Super Hornet, I was like, where's the Lex?
It was weird. The cant up of the gun is weird when you're doing a high angle strafe. You know, it was definitely weird from the F-16, which doesn't have that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Well, Wombat, I got another question for you. As far as operating around the boat here, the question is, if you ever want to just wave people off to mess with them, and obviously the answer is no, but I don't think a lot of people know this.
Obviously the answer is no. Absolutely the answer is yes.
Well, I don't think a lot of people know this. But back me up, but like as a Navy pilot, like I could never take my own wave off.
No, and that actually I've seen people do it.
Take their own wave off?
Yeah, and it's the ripple effect that has through not only the LSO cadre but CAG LSO, CAG himself is immediate. I mean, that pilot gets talked to again because it goes back to what I was saying before about that trust.
Yeah,
and, you know, because there's things you can do. You know, sometimes we know as an LSO you're not going to catch a wire. I know it because you're too high. But I need to get some landing gear on the flight deck to stop your settle to get you going back airborne. And if you take your own wave off, you could go kind of off the front of the ship.
Yep.
Which we've had.
On bolter, right?
Well, not even a bolt, like a long bolter, or I mean, you know, and that gets ugly, as you know. So the yeah, I mean, I've seen it happen, and that pilot didn't fly for quite a while, and got a lot of people talking to him. So
yeah, I can't tell you how many times, like at night, you get all spatial D, you think you're super steep or whatever. You're like, dude, I really want to go around, like, you know, right, even in your mask, and they just keep you coming because, you know, they've got the sight picture down there, and you got to have that trust.
So to answer the question, yes, I mean, naval aviation's all about, at least in my era, screwing with other buddies, but I would never do it because it's inherently super dangerous. And I mean, you know, push comes to shove, that's what matters.
All right, man, we're coming up on an hour. One more quick question from Tim here. Are you excited for Top Gun 2, Wombat?
Sure. I'd lie if Top Gun 1 didn't shape kind of my goals. So I hope that I hope it's done well. But then again, I don't know if Top Gun 1 was really done well. It just worked for us. So I guess all I can hope for is that it does to this generation what the original did for us.
Tomcats.
And I hope there's not too many drones, and I hope he upgraded his motorcycle. But that's about it.
Well, Mover, you're hoping for what kind of plane?
Tomcats. They'll be Iranian this time. There's one. That's the only one they can fly. All the other one are used for parts.
Nice. Well, hey, Wombat, dude, thanks for coming on. We burned an hour, man. Got to answer some questions and talk about some good old times. Mover, thanks for running things and being our token Air Force guy, at least in this this episode.
I'm like the little brother just sitting here watching.
You and your dog. But I'll make sure some of Wombat's info gets down in the notes when this video goes onto the YouTube. So anyways, thanks a lot, guys, for joining us, and we'll definitely do this again. So everybody have a good night.
Thanks, man.